The energy industry is one of the major sources of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. Since 1992, emissions from the energy and industry sectors have increased more than 60%, despite many governments pledging to tackle the causes of global warming. Governments around the world are increasingly committing to stop climate change, but there is still a lot to do to limit the rise in global temperatures and avoid the worst effects of climate change. Nevertheless, 4 recent events send us a signal that we are starting to see the end of the fossil fuel era, and give us hope about our fight against climate change. The first news is that in a shocking new report published in May of 2021, the International Energy Agency says that we do not have to invest in new fossil fuel supplies to power our planet if we want to slash carbon dioxide emissions and reach net zero by the year 2050. The agency basically says that we have enough resources to fuel our energy needs. We do not have to look for any more coal, petroleum or natural gas. The world is ready to transition to a world powered by renewables. To understand the impact of this news, we have to understand that the International Energy Agency has been characterized to be aligned with the fossil fuel agenda, and to systematically undermine the potential of renewable energy. This report is basically a death sentence for one of the most polluting industries in the planet. No one is going to want to invest in an industry that has its days counted. The second news is that in a landmark case, a court in The Hague has ordered the Royal Dutch Shell to reduce its global carbon emissions by 45% by the end of this decade, compared with 2019 levels. This also happened in May 2021. This is an unprecedented ruling that will have wide implications for the energy industry and other polluting multinational companies. Their emissions will now have to comply with the Paris Climate Agreement. This is a turning point in history, since it is the first time that a corporation is being held responsible for its contribution to the climate crisis, and is also being ordered to comply with the Paris Climate Agreement. Also, the punishment is not limited to the damage caused during the extraction, refinement or transport of fossil fuels. It also affects the emissions that come from the whole life of the fossil fuels that this company will sell. This sets a precedent for the entire world and goes in line with the message first sent by the International Energy Agency. The third relevant news is that also in May, the shareholders of ExxonMobil, which is another corporation that is also one of the biggest contributors to global emissions, voted to replace 2 of the company's board members with directors who are seen as better suited to fight climate change and force the company's leadership to adjust its business strategy to match global efforts to combat climate change. This is a huge deal since it shows that there is more seriousness in the thinking among the company's investors about climate change, in a company that has lagged other oil majors in its response to climate change by forecasting many more years of fossil fuel demand growth, and increasing spending to boost its output, instead of scaling back fossil fuel investments. This event happened the same day that Royal Dutch Shell was ordered to drastically deepen its pledge to cut greenhouse gas emissions. The fourth piece of news is the revolution in Chevron. Earlier in 2021, the shareholders of Chevron rebelled against the company's board by voting in favor of cutting emissions generated by the use of their own products. This marks a paradigm shift for investors in the company and a victory in the fight against climate change. Investors are realizing that it is no longer safe to invest in companies that are wrecking our environment and contributing to climate change. These 4 pieces of news show us that we are starting to see the momentum change in the fight for climate change. These are historical landmarks that underscore the rising investor pressure and growing frustration towards companies which are not doing enough to tackle climate change. Oil titans are now coming under increasing pressure to address environmental concerns and find new ways to cut emissions and fall in line with global climate change pledges. We are starting to see all around the world signals that give us hope about our future. If we can keep this momentum, we can finally start reverting climate change. Let's keep this momentum going and improve our chances of fighting global warming. It is now or never. Please share this message. Let's beat climate change.